Hello, welcome to the Manasplained podcast. I'm Connor. Today I'll be talking about the deck I built for Rohgahh of Kher. So this is probably one of the worst commanders from Legends. It's obscenely bad. So 6 mana for a 5/5, no other keyword abilities, that's already not great. And then it says all of your kobolds of Kher get +2/+2, and then you have to pay 3 red during your upkeep, or Rohgahh and all kobolds of Kher become tapped under an opponent's control. So when it says all your kobolds of Kher get +2/+2, that means it's not an Anthem for kobolds. It's an Anthem for kobolds of Kher, which is 1 card. There is 1 creature, because you can only have 1 card per name with Magic's given rules and how they print cards. So there's only 1 card called Kobolds of Kher. Luckily, we have ways to make token copies of Kobolds of Kher, which is what the deck is aiming to do, and I really hope you enjoy the video, so let's jump into it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. It really helps with channel growth, and I love talking to you guys down in the comments after these videos go live. So for the deck breakdown, we have 4 theme cards, 10 tutor cards, 8 copy cards, 3 protection cards, 9 anthem cards, 11 draw, 10 ramp, 10 removal, 1 board wipe, and 36 lands. So this deck is all over the place, and that's because there's not a lot of ways to make token copies or to make kobolds of Kher, but we do have 4, and that's just what the deck's aiming to do. The copy cards make, like, either copy the way we make tokens or make more token copies. Oh my god, this deck, like, there's not much you can do here. Like, there just isn't. So yeah, this is the only way I could think of to really make this deck work. And all that tied together gives us 1 crossover card. This deck is not great. It'll work more often than not because of all the tutors. I hate running tutors, but we have to run tutors for this deck to work, because this deck is basically a secret commander deck. And the secret commander is one of the 4 theme cards. So the 4 theme cards are Kher, Psychic Paper, Spy Kit, and Kobolds of Kher. So the land, Kher, is the secret commander of the deck. You can pay 1 and a red and tap it to make a 0/1 red kobold creature token named Kobolds of Kher. So basically pay 3 mana and make a 0/1. That's the secret commander of the deck. We do have Kobolds of Kher, the creature, in the deck. It's a 0 mana 0/1, that's red, and a kobold, and terrible, but we do have it. Psychic Paper, when it becomes attached to a creature, choose a creature name and a creature type. So when Psychic Paper becomes attached to a creature, we get to name Kobolds of Kher and Kobold, and then the equipped creature is named Kobolds of Kher, so that synergizes with our commander. And Spy Kit, the equipped creature has all names of non-legendary creatures and gets +1/+1, so Spy Kit also makes the equipped creature a Kobold of Kher. So yeah, that's what the deck does. It's insanely bad, but because we can tutor up for Kher pretty consistently, given all the tutors I'm running in the deck, it's going to be able to do its thing, which is make the tokens. This deck is going to be insanely slow. It's making 1 to 2, maybe 3 if you're lucky, 0/1s per turn, which is insanely bad. It's going to be super mana expensive. Yeah, no, this commander is atrocious, but hey, that's what I decided to do with this series. So for the tutors, the tutors are, I hate tutors. I love the variance that comes from the commander format. I love the randomness of just getting a 100 card pile, and then just like the randomness that's associated with that. I really enjoy that part of commander. And so when you add a bunch of tutors and you can go get whatever card you want whenever you want, it really makes the decks unfun for me. But considering the entire deck revolves around 1 land, we're going to need to run tutors in order to get it, so that we can get the commander out of the deck. So these are all the tutors that you pay once and then get it later. So Profane Tutor, pay 2, it gets 2 time counters, goes into exile, and then 2 turns later, you get to search your library for any card and put it into your hand. So we can activate this early, play some ramp, get some other lands out, and then when we get Kobolds of Kher, we can play it and activate it for turn, which is great. Expedition Map, for 3 mana, we just go grab Kobolds of Kher and put it into our hand. And then Rohgahh, Blood Sky Sire, 3 mana for a 2/3 with Death Touch, and when it attacks, we can pay 1 and a black, and then we search our library for a card and put it on top of our library. Rohgahh, being a repeatable tutor effect, is quite good. It does put to the top of the library, so we're basically just choosing the card we draw for turn every turn, unless we have a way to draw with like a Faithless Looting or something like that. But at the same time, being able to tutor multiple times, so we can go get our Kher Keep, we can get our Kobolds of Kher Keep, we can get our Spy kit or our Psychic Paper, put that on Rohgahh, make him a Kobolds of Kher Keep as well. It's pretty cool. These are all of the 3 and 4 mana tutors we're running that can go find us our Kher Keep. The only issue is with Rhystic Tutor, if someone pays 2, it doesn't happen. So you gotta politic for that, and you gotta be like, listen, this deck is bad. I'm running this because all the other tutors that are cheaper are way too expensive. I'm paying 3 mana. Please let me go get my terrible land. And people probably won't pay the 2. At least people I play with won't. You could even reveal it, be like, hey, this is the card I'm getting. It's just a bad land. And not the bad lands. So yeah, with Rhystic Tutor, it is pretty bad, but I'm sure people will let you go through. And you could also just cast it when no one has 2 mana up. So yeah, it's really bad, but hey, it's a 3 mana tutor. That's very inexpensive. And then Diabolical Tutor and Mastermind Acquisition are just 4 mana unconditional. Just grab your Kobolds, you grab your Kher Keep, and then yeah, man, I hate tutors, but we really need them here. This deck really needs them to be able to run properly. And then last, we have the 5 mana tutors. Dark Petition can give us 3 mana back if there are 2 more instant sorceries in the graveyard, which we are running a bunch of instant sorceries for like drawing cards. So Dark Petition can spell mastery relatively often, which makes it a 2 mana tutor, and then we get to add and then spend the 3 black mana on something else, which is great. Demonic Collusion has buyback, discard 2 cards. I don't know how often you're going to be buying this back, but say you have a couple dead cards in hand, you can easily just buy it back and keep going. Maybe tutor again the next turn for something else you want. I'm not sure what else you would really want to grab with this though, but yeah, it's for 5 mana. Yeah, it's interesting. It's a cool card. And then we have Final Parting. For 5 mana, it gets 2 cards, put 1 into our hand and 1 into our graveyard. The 1 card we're going to be grabbing with this every time is Anger. Anger gives your entire board haste as long as it's in your graveyard and you control a mountain, which we're going to need a lot of red mana, so we're going to be able to get mountains out relatively often because all of the fetch lands like Evolving Wilds and stuff. So Final Parting can go get us Anger. The reason we're running Anger is because a lot of the red draw in this deck also discards, so we can get Anger out of our hand or out of our deck very easily, which can give our Kobolds a Kher Keep haste, which it's something. It's not nothing, which is great. But yeah, Final Parting just makes that a lot easier because we can just get that card into the yard, Kher Keep into our hand. It's probably the best tutor in the deck because of that. So we both want ways to make copies of the Kobolds of Kher Keep, and then to copy the way we make Kobolds of Kher Keep. So I'll jump into what cards I chose now. So the problem with this commander being in black-red is red is very good at making token copies that leave at the end step or at the end of combat or something like that, because green and white gets all the populate effects that make token copies that stick around, or let you copy tokens that stick around. But these are the cards I decide that can make token copies of our Kobolds of Kher Keep. They will get sacrifice or exile at the beginning of the next end step, but we do have ways to get around that, which I'll show later. All these cards are great. With a bunch of the Anthem effects and our commander, we'll be able to get our Kobolds a little bit bigger, make some copies of them, and then attack face with it. It's great. I know Kiki Jiki goes infinite with a ham sandwich, but we're not running any of those infinite combos in the deck just because I'm not a really big fan of infinites. Here are the other 4 copy effects. Rings of Bright Hearth and Lithoform Engine. We can pay 2 and tap them to copy target activated or triggered ability. So when we activate our Kobolds of Kher Keep, we can pay 2 more mana and we get another guy. So for 5 mana, we get 2 0/1s instead of 3 mana for 1, which is a slightly better rate, and that's what we're here for. And then Felden of the Third Path, say we already have the Anger in the yard, and we're using Final Parting to get the Kobold of Kher Keep, the actual card, into our graveyard. We can use Felden to make a copy of it every turn, or if we have a bigger, more impactful creature in the graveyard, we can use Felden to make a copy of that. Even an Anger, attack with an Anger, probably fine. And then Helm of the Host can make a token copy of the equipped creature at the beginning of combat on each turn, and the token sticks around, so we can put it on our Kobold of Kher Keep, and then that'll just make a new Kobold of Kher Keep every turn. It has haste. It's great. So our commander's an Anthem effect. We're not going to play out our commander very often. We're going to wait till we have a bunch of kobolds, then we're going to play our commander and swing with the kobolds. And the problem with that is, like, we need a way to protect our tokens. We need a way to keep our tokens if we're making extra copies off of our Splinter Twin and Kiki Jiki and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I went with for this protection category. So the two protection cards that can keep our tokens are the Master Multiplied and Sundial the Infinite. So off of our Splinter Twin, Kiki Jiki, stuff like that, the Master Multiplied makes it so that we keep those tokens. They don't go away, which is insanely powerful. That's so useful. The Master Multiplied is also just a win condition in of itself. It is myriad, and so when it attacks, it'll make 2 copies of itself attacking our opponents, and then they stick around, so then they'll have myriad. So you'll have 12 power swinging, and then you'll have 36 power swinging, and then you have over 100 power swinging. It's kind of stupid. It's very stupid. This card gets out of hand insanely fast, but you're probably not going to be swinging with it because people will remove it immediately. You can be like, if you don't remove it, I won't swing this at you. Use this as some politic just so that you can keep your kobolds around. And then probably one of my favorite cards in the deck is Darksteel Garrison, because we can fortify our Kher Keep to make it indestructible. I wish Darksteel Garrison itself had indestructible, like the actual artifact, but no, just the land it's equipped to, it's fortified on gets indestructible. But then when you tap it, target creature gets +1/+0 until the end of turn. So it can make one of our kobolds of Kher Keep a 0/1 into a 1/2, which is crazy. And then Sundial the Infinite. When all of the sacrifice and exile on the end step triggers go on the stack, we can then pay 1 and tap it to end the turn to exile all those triggers, and then we get to keep the token copies we've made with our Splinter Twin and Kiki Jiki and stuff. So kobolds in Magic are 0/1s. They deal no damage, they die to anything. That's kind of like, it's a running joke, and it's just the mechanical way they work in this game. So because of that, we need anthems to make them bigger so we can actually deal damage with our tiny little not goblins. So if you look in the middle of the screen here, there is a card that is the same name as our commander. And that's because when Dominaria United Commander and the Dominaria United set came out, they remastered a lot of old commanders and made them new, made them actually function better, made them more interesting, yada yada yada. And so they did that with Rohgahh. And they took Rohgahh from a commander that cares about one card named Kobolds of Kher Keep, and made him a generic Kobold typal commander, and then also with a little bit of dragon synergy in there. So whenever you cast a dragon spell, you make a kobold named Kobolds of Kher Keep, and whenever you cast a kobold spell, you may pay 2, and if you do, create a 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying. And so Rohgahh is a really interesting commander. I really like his design space. It's a very cool card, and it's an anthem for your other kobolds, so that's fantastic, which is why it's in the deck. 5 mana gives your other kobolds +2/+2. That's a pretty solid rate. It is functionally just a better commander than OG Rohgahh. That's what they did. They just made the old cards actually better functioning commanders, which I'm super happy with. But problem is, it makes my job a little awkward, because when I'm trying to build these old commanders, when there's just a strictly better version, it feels kind of bad, especially when you have to put them in the deck because they fit the strategy, because they're just a better version of that same strategy. And so it's in the deck. If you want to swap them out, you probably should, but if you want to stick to the OG Kobold commander, you run OG Rohgahh. And then also in the deck, we have Kobold Drill Sergeant and Kobold Taskmaster. Both of these cards are more Kobold Anthem cards. Kobold Drill Sergeant gives +0/+1 and trample, so makes them a little bit tougher, and gives them trample, so the other Anthem effects have more of an effect. And then Kobold Taskmaster gives our other kobolds +1/+0, turning them from 0/1s into 1/1s, so they can actually start dealing damage. All of these cards are great. They would work better in a Kobold typal strategy, which you would run with this Rohgahh, Kher Keep Overlord, as your commander, because it also even costs less mana. Oh my god. But yeah, these cards are all great. I'd love to have them here. They're so good in this strategy. These are the 3 mana anthems in the deck. Hall of Triumph, we'll choose a color, and then we'll choose red, and our red creatures get +1/+1. Adaptive Automaton, we'll choose Kobold, and then our Kobolds get +1/+1. And then Shared Animosity, whenever a creature you control attacks, it gets +1/+0 until end of turn for each other attacking creature that shares a creature type with it. So, say you have 5 Kobolds, they all attack, all of your Kobolds will get +4/+0 until the end of turn. This really helps with the whole fact that there's 0/1s, and if we can get a bunch of them, like 5, 6, 7 of them, we get that many -1 as a power boost to really help deal damage. They're probably going to die. A lot of them are just going to get chump blocked and killed because they start out at 0/1, but hopefully we'll have another one of our Anthems out, maybe Drill Sergeant, getting them a little bit tougher so that they might be able to survive from some 1/1 chump blockers. And then the last 3 Anthem effects we have here: Paragon of Fierce Defiance, it's a creature, gives your other red creatures +1/+1, which is great. It gives our Kobolds of Kher +1/+1, it's a great effect. And we can also pay a red and tap it. Another red creature you control gains haste until the end of turn. Won't happen too often, probably, but it's still there. It's a nice effect when we need it. Obelisk of Erd has Convoke, so it's easier to get out there. Creatures can tap to cast it, like our Paragon, and so we can get out there and then give our Kobolds +2/+2. It's a great Anthem effect in that sense. And then Anger, we've talked about it before, being able to get it into our graveyard, so giving our creatures haste is awesome. So we're in Rakdos, which means we have access to Black's life loss draw, which is actually pretty solid, but then we have a ton of the red draw, which discards cards, because with cards like Feldon and Anger, we are going to want to get Anger in our graveyard and Kobold of Kher in our graveyard so that we could Feldon that one or something like that. And so having ways to discard the Anger is important, but also just 2 mana, draw 2, discard a card is like a fine rate. It's good for filtering through and getting to the cards you need at an efficient rate, because this deck needs to be a little bit more low to the ground on that side, because we're spending so much mana just activating our Kobolds of Kher every turn. These are the 2 not on rate cards in the deck. Faithless Looting draws 2, discards 2. It is card disadvantage because we're essentially discarding 3 cards and then only drawing 2. But we can flashback it from our graveyard to just filter through 2 more cards. Faithless Looting is an absolutely phenomenal card. Cathartic Reunion, discard 2, draw 3. So it is a little higher on rate than most of the 2 mana cards, because most of the 2 mana draw spells in red are discard 1, draw 2. So this card is absolutely great here. And then we have the black draw spells. You don't have to discard cards, but you do have to pay life. Sign to Blood, Night's Whisper, draw 2, pay 2 life for 2 mana, and then Read the Bones is scry 2, draw 2, pay 2 life for 3 mana. So for that 1 extra mana, you do get to scry 2, and that's almost as good as drawing in a whole other card. So these are the rest of the draw cards. They're all 2 mana, discard, and draw. Demand Answers, Through a Possibility, Tormenting Voice, Witch's Mark, and Bitter Reunion all say discard a card, draw 2 cards. But Demand Answers, we can also sack an artifact instead. So say we have a mana rock sitting around that we don't need. Maybe someone gave us a treasure token or a clue or a food somehow. Maybe someone's playing the monkey that can give out bananas. We can use that to sack the artifact, which it's a non-zero chance that we're going to get some artifact from our opponents in some way. So yeah, Demand Answers is great for that. Bitter Reunion has a secondary ability that, since it's an enchantment, it'll sit on the battlefield after we draw the 2 and then discard the card, then draw 2 more. And then we can pay 1 and sack it to give our creatures haste until the end of turn, which say we make like 3 kobolds on our turn somehow. We can give them haste swing in, which is great. Witch's Mark, we can put a Wicked Roll onto a creature we control, and rolls are token auras. And the Wicked Roll gives the enchanted creature a +1/+1. And when the aura enters the graveyard, each opponent loses 1 life. So we could put this on a creature that we don't want to die, because if someone ever kills it, then each opponent's going to lose 1 life. That's not much in Commander because we all start with 40, but it's still better than nothing. And yeah, it's a pretty solid card. It's better than Thrill of Possibility and Tormenting Voice because it actually has that alternate effect. It's funny how power creep works. And then Cathartic Pyre, which is pretty good here. It's removal or a Faithless Looting like effect. It's a rummaging, faithless rummaging effect, where you can discard up to 2 cards and draw that many cards. So this card and 2 other cards are rotting in our hand. We can just go, yeah, I don't want these, give me 2 fresh ones. Or we can pay 2 mana to deal 3 damage to a creature or a planeswalker, which is good removal. A lot of creatures, a lot of pretty valuable creatures sit at 3 or less toughness, so Cathartic Pyre is good for getting rid of those. So because we're in Rakdos, and if we ever have our commander out, we're going to need access to a lot of red. We're not running much colorless mana ramp, and also we have to run artifact ramp because there's not a lot of land ramp. The colorless land ramp is too expensive and too clunky for this deck. 4 mana to get a basic out. Honestly, I don't want to do that in this deck. This deck is not looking for that kind of effect. So because of that, we're running a lot more low to the ground stuff so that we can get our kobolds of Kher keep out, start activating it a bunch, eventually get our commander out, hopefully pay the 3 red mana to keep it. But yeah, so these are the ramp cards. These are the mana rocks that might not produce a red. Soul Ring is going to produce colorless every time, but it's just so powerful. It helps us get out our really clunky, expensive tutors to get the kobolds of Kher keep, so that's important. Fellwar Stone can tap for a red. It's, I don't know, 50, I don't know what the math would be. I'm just going to say 50-50 chance that it's going to tap for red. That math is definitely 100% wrong, but that's the gut feeling I'm going to go with. Prismatic Lens, we can filter a mana through it. So say our Fellwar Stone is making not red, we can put it into the Prismatic Lens to make red. Or the Soul Ring can filter through the Prismatic Lens to make red. Wayfarer's Bauble, 99% of the time we're getting a mountain with this card, but there is a small chance we're getting a swamp, which means it could be a mana rock that does not produce red. And the Talisman of Indulgence. We're going to be tapping this for colorless as often as we can because the damage from it does actually add up over the course of a game. So we could filter that through the Prismatic Lens. The Kher Keep land does require a generic and a red to activate it to make the 0/1, so the Talisman of Indulgence can pay for that. All these cards are great though, because if we need them to, there is a chance they could make red one way or another, except for Fellwar Stone and Soul Ring. That's out of our hands. And then we have all the mana rocks that are guaranteed to make red. Arcane Signet taps for a red or a black every time. It's fantastic. Rakdos Signet taps for a red and a black every time, which is awesome. Running Fire Diamond, not Charcoal Diamond, because we really want the red mana. Star Compass will tap for 1 mana of any color of a basic we control. So Star Compass will give us our red mana because we're gonna want mountains. And then Gilded Lotus, 3 mana of any one color. Our commander during our upkeep requires 3 red, or we get rid of all of our dudes. So Gilded Lotus pays for that, which is awesome. So since we're running black and red, we have access to great creature removal, a little bit of artifact removal, and 1 enchant removal. We can also have planeswalkers with our creatures, but yeah, black and red cannot really deal with enchantments almost at all. We have Feed the Swarm, that's about it. But we do have very good creature removal, and we're gonna want to be able to get rid of big creatures so that we can get in with our small guys and stop people from hitting us. People will not focus us though. This deck will never be the problem, ever. I don't know this deck. I don't even know if this deck can win, honestly. But we will have removal for when we need to deal with the problematic stuff that'll stop us from being able to attack for one reason or another. Here are all the 2 mana black spells that'll kill creatures. Doomblade's non-black creature. Infernal Grasp is any creature, but you lose 2 life. Walk the Plank is a non-merfolk creature. And Go for the Throat is a non-artifact creature. So the non-artifact one and the non-black one will whiff sometimes, because say someone has an Atraxa out, or they have like a Send Triplets out, or a Wormcoil Engine or something. Yeah, these ones can miss more often than Walk the Plank, but they're instant speed and they're 1 in a black, so they're worth running. And then Feed the Swarm for sorcery speed, destroy target creature or enchantment. You lose life equal to the permanent's mana value, but that's fine. That's honestly worth it. This card's insane. The fact that they gave black enchantment removal is kind of nuts. And then we have a Braid to destroy an artifact or deal 3 damage to a creature. Again, Cathartic Pyre's back. Bedevil can destroy an artifact, creature, or planeswalker. Vandal Blast can destroy an artifact, or you can overload it to destroy all artifacts we don't control, which is really good. That one-sidedness of the board wipe there is fantastic. And then Molten Collapse. So if you've descended, which means a permanent card was put into your graveyard from anywhere, so if you discarded a card with one of the red discard spells, or say you activated an Evolving Wilds to go fetch a land, we can then cast Molten Collapse and destroy target creature or planeswalker, and destroy target non-creature non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less. So say someone has a Soul Ring or a Mana Crypt out, and then someone else has like their commander out for 2 mana, we can get rid of 2 things. Molten Collapse is phenomenal. It's such a good card. It's very powerful, and yeah, it's probably the best removal spell in the deck. It is sorcery speed, so that kind of sucks, but I don't know, it's close. Molten Collapse is crazy. So you are running 1 board wipe, and you already saw it. It is Vandal Blast. It's a great card. I don't run it enough, and I really should be running it more. This card's absolutely insane. The fact that 1 red mana destroy an artifact, that's already like great value. And the fact that you can overload this, it'll get rid of everybody's treasures, all their soul rings, their mana rocks, all of their artifact creatures. Say someone's got someone's Triplicate Titan just died, you can get rid of all 3 of their tokens. I've had that happen before when like someone used had a Death Touch blocker to block the Triplicate Titan, and then on their turn they overloaded a Vandal Blast. Yeah, it's pretty sick. I really should be running this card more. I think everyone should be running this card more. I don't see it often enough, but yeah, when it lands for 5 mana, 1-sided board wipe too. Like, this card is absolutely ridiculous. And now we have the lands. So when building this deck, it's a Rakdos deck, and with the fact that we need basics for our Star Compass, and with our Anger and stuff, we are running quite a few mountains and swamps just because I like basics, but we are running a couple kind of spicy lands. One land that is actually pretty cool. It's going to be so expensive if we're going to want to do it, but it's a fun, very cool synergy. The fun synergy land being Weathertop, or Deserted Temple. So it taps for a colorless, but we can pay a colorless and tap it to untap target land. So if we have the mana, with this land we could activate Kobolds of Kher twice in 1 turn. It would cost 8 mana to get 2 0/1s, but it's a thing you can do. Oh, it's so bad. Also, you can use Weathertop to like untap your Rakdos Carnarium, which is just ramp, which is great. And then we also have Homeward Path, which is probably one of the best lands in the deck because our commander says pay 3 during your upkeep, or target opponent gains control of all of our commander and all Kobolds of Kher. So Homeward Path, we can tap it to get it back, because each player gains control of all creatures he or she owns. So it gets rid of all the kind of steal effects, which steal effects are my least favorite kind of effect in Magic. Let me have my stuff. You can kill it, you can mill it, just don't steal it, because I paid for it, so I get to play it. God, I hate steal effects. I wish Homeward Path needs to be reprinted into the ground, because I want to run this in all of my decks. I really do. I want to run in all of my decks so bad, but it's too expensive. It needs to be reprinted into the ground, because steal effects need to be kept in check because they're not fair. They're so stupid. And then I'll say it in all my videos that I put them in, which is basically going to be all of them. But Wizards, please put the Battle Bonds lands in the Commander Precons. They're multiplayer format cards. Please put them in the multiplayer format products. Thank you so much. And for the uninitiated, the Battle Bond lands, if you look over at Luxury Suite, it says enters the battlefield tapped unless you have 2 or more opponents. So these are just untapped lands in Commander, and they're dual lands. They're over $10 a piece. Some of them are like 15, some of them are 20 bucks. They all need to be under $5. They need to be reprinted into the ground. They should cost as much as a Soul Ring. They just need to be reprinted in all of the precons, because there's no reason not to. They're so good, and everyone should have so much access to them because they're just good cards. Making cuts for this deck was not hard. When I originally started, I was thinking I'll just make a Kobold tribal deck and suck it up. And then I was like, no, I want to lean more into what the commander says, so I'm leaning into specifically Kobolds of Kher. I will have some of the cards in the maybe category were from when I was trying to make that Kobold tribal or Kobold typal strategy. But yeah, so here are the cards I decided to cut. So here's the first group of cards I'm going to talk about that I cut. Rogsnack, Heir of Rohgahh. It's an interesting Kobold commander. Battle Cry, so whenever it attacks, each other attacking creature gets +1/+0 until the end of turn. And Heroic, so whenever you cast a spell that targets it, you make a Cobalt of Kher. I'm not running many target spells. I'm not running any target spells that isn't a removal spell, so that'd be a problem. But if you wanted to run like a Voltron deck with a bunch of pump spells and stuff, you could then make a bunch of 0/1s. Yeah, Rohgahh is interesting. It's a funny card. It'd be a fun commander to build, but it's honestly pretty bad. Instruments of War is just a really overcosted Anthem. 4 mana for +1/+1 is just not where you want to be. Cobalt Overlord is a $90 card, so that's why it's not in the deck, but I would have loved to run it, but it is $90. Some other cards in the deck I were running that were over the $15 range because you just needed them in a deck like this, but yeah, that card's $90. Oof. And then Delina Wild Mage and Flame Rush Rider. These make token copies, but they get exiled at the end of combat, not the end of turn, so they're different from other token effects. So like our Sundial of the Infinite wouldn't only be able to save the tokens from those group of cards and then not these, so which is why I decided to not run them. And then lastly, we got Gamble. It's a pretty good tutor, but at the chance of putting Kher into the graveyard, that would just completely ruin our entire strategy, and then we would no longer be able to play the game. And then the rest of the cards here were more about the Cobalt of Kher, and I was thinking more trying to focus on that card alone instead of the land. So we got Phyrexian Reclamation to pull it back from the graveyard when it eventually dies, and then we got Animate Dead and Necromancy also to pull it back from the yard. And then I leaned away from more of those cards as I leaned more towards Kher, so that it's because it's on a land, it's a little more protected, it's an easier strategy to go for. And then Centennial Flute is a 5 mana artifact. We can pay X and tap to July before a creature card with a mana value X or less, and then reveal, put in your hand, shuffle. So it's a 5 mana to go get our 0 mana 0/1. Again, I cut that card because I'm putting way less of a focus on the actual card name Kobolds of Kher and more making tokens using the land. So what did you think of the deck? I'm very happy with it. As happy as I can be. Like I said before, the commander is really bad. It's super narrow and very limited, like in bad ways. It does breed a lot of deck building like creativity when doing this, because you need to use the Kher in order to get this commander to do anything. And then in addition to that, you need to find ways to get the Kher, ways to duplicate its effects so you can do it more than one time turn. Yeah, it's pretty wild commander. I'm glad they remastered it in a way that doesn't suck, like the newer version that is just strictly a Kobold typal commander. Maybe you could do some dragon stuff there to make some fodder for some of the other dragons, maybe a dragon with Devour or something, I don't know. But yeah, let me know what you think. Would you ever play this deck? Have you ever built this deck? Let me know down in the comments. These are all my socials. Twitter is when I post when these videos go live. TikTok and Reddit, I'm going to start making content there at some point. And then Architect and Moxfield are where all these deck lists live. So thank you for watching, and as always, get building, splainers. That is so